So welcome to the Secure Dynamics TechCast. With me, I have two CISOs. One is a past guest, which is Lamont Orange from Netscope. Welcome, Lamont.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And thanks to Lamont, the introduction to Rick Holland, who is the CISO at Digital Shadows. Welcome, Rick.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So let's get started. Let's start with a topic that I know both of you are, and other CISOs in the industry as well, which is the budget allocations, right? So doing more with less is probably more than just a mantra. It's going to be reality for CISOs going forward as the industry grapples with the lowered revenues and the shifting dynamics, if you will. So how does your role, particularly because the risk levels have to be kept down, the bad guys aren't going to stop. So how do you manage your current portfolio and needing to do the right thing with less budget going forward? Let's start with you, Rick.
I have a joke. Right now, since April dropped and everyone's gone remote, you're hearing like zero trust, all the things. And I hear people say zero trust. I'm like, man, it's more like zero money, zero budget for a lot of people that are out there. Now, I know there's certain verticals that people are spending, and then people are trying to spend money before they might lose money, that sort of thing. But certainly we should have a higher level of scrutiny on our budgets, because our CFOs are going to be asking those questions, even if it's just to repurpose money to another line of business or to another region or whatever the case may be. And we all know security and IT budgets are chunky and represent some opportunity for repurposing. So one of the things we were talking about Forrester before you joined, Lamont, and one of the lines that I had at Forrester was I called it expense in depth instead of defense in depth. And I think a lot of us, and I have done this too, where we might buy multiple things. We don't take advantage of those multiple things. So I think you should be doing this regularly anyway, but now it's even more important is to look at your portfolio. Where are you getting value? Where do you have redundant controls? Have you maximized every control that's in a feature? And then is there a way you can free up budget? And maybe you're freeing up budget to get better training to maximize your team, or maybe you're freeing up budget because the CFO is coming knocking and he or she is asking for some more money. So those are my quick intro thoughts on it.
So Lamont, shifting to you again, this is a great conversation, which is as you probably said, expense in depth, and you bought a lot of things. So Lamont, what's your experience when it comes to having bought products that either never get fully utilized or are doing less than what they are purported to do?
So I think what we're really talking about too is treating security as a business function.
Yeah,
we've treated it much as a technology function when you talk about buying things, and you're sticking this tactical product here or this very niche product there, and it gives you 1% of the value of something else in your environment, but you needed to fill that gap for what the business is doing. So in essence, when we look at budgeting and being challenged to do more with less, that's part of being a CISO. That conversation doesn't stop. I think when you start to look at the efficacy of your products, that's when we start changing our I guess, the focus area of how we look at it. Efficacy at one point was looked at as TCO, and then it was looked at dollar to revenue. How much revenue do I spend in technology versus security versus the business? And I think now we have to look at how we're enabling the business so that we can start to talk as security leaders to where non-technical stakeholders can understand what we're trying to do, as well as the other stakeholders in the business, because we're also going to be fighting for that dollar that they have also.
So talk about something, Lamont, continuing on with something that you had mentioned in a previous conversation with me about how CISOs like yourselves have seen projects getting fast-tracked in this COVID environment, right? Because everybody's home, whether it's remote access, VPN, CASB, so on and so forth. And now we're in this phase of extended, whatever you want to call it. So is there more need now, more so than ever, because you've deployed or you've utilized or you've scaled out so much? And how does that discipline now come into play, especially as you were mentioning, I still remember the words, which is, hey, you have this adrenaline high because of this big infusion of hey, do make it happen overnight. So how does that reality set in where you're moving more from let's get it done to, hey, we got to look at the logs, we got to look at SSL traffic versus non-SSL and seeing how much is being utilized effectively in our firewall, for example?
No, I think this is a great question where we are, because if you talk about, post COVID, well, we're in the post COVID,
Mm.
and so many ways. I mean, this is a new operating model. Does it affect the 2020 budget year? Yes, it does. It affects 21 and 22 too at this point, because you accelerated strategies to get your workforce and get your business operational. I think the other thing that we come back to is this whole business focus of security that you ask in question number one, is that we got to think of this as a business. Yes, we're going to be squeezed for budgets, but we also still have to maintain, this is now the new status quo of work from home. And if you didn't have an opportunity to do it elegantly and you just, made it work, now it's how can you do it better? How can you do it more efficiently, going back to the efficacy of your tools? So I think the platform play is really going to start to rule, because now you can look at how you've been able to maximize that security solution in the cloud versus all the niche solutions that you've purchased along the way. And you still want any of your baselines that you had before, they're out the window, right? So your platforms are going to give you your reporting, they're going to give you your coverage. And hopefully, when you look at and choose these platforms, you're looking for something that's open-ended, because your services and service providers, like your managed security service providers, may be one of those things that you cut. And one of the big selling points for having them too is to, surround these disparate technologies and give you a picture view, which the platforms are equipped to do today.
Rick, your thoughts?
One thing I think about, like, this new reality, and for many organizations, fire drill, we're gonna compact 18 months of deployments into 3 months time. Is just going back and looking at all of these deployments. You only have so much pipeline of resources to deliver things, so they may not have been implemented correctly. Lamont said something I totally agree with, like, the baselines are dead. We need to be doing new risk assessments right now and validating the new controls that we have in place, validating the usefulness of old providers, old controls. And maybe that's where you divest, because maybe you don't need as much on-prem focus anymore, and you need to have more mobile management of phones, of personal devices, corporate devices, whatever the case may be that's out there. So I think when it comes to budget right now, doing risk assessments in this month, in next month, because we're going to be planning 2021. In fact, I was talking to a team member on my team. I was like, hey, come August, we're going to start planning for next year, and we need to think about that now. So go back, validate what you put into place, and then think about your 2021 goals and how you're going to go in and try to get better visibility into risk, and then better mitigation of that risk.
So great segue into my last question, Rick, continuing on with you. So you mentioned team member, you're talking about 2021 right now. So given where we are right now, right, and everything that's being upended, is there a mindset of the kinds of people, whether it's cultural, whether it's diversity, whether it's the education background, is there a different creed of security professionals that are needed, or do you believe that existing people can adjust to this new reality of saying, hey, it's more about operations, more about visibility, the platform approach, making sure that we run security as a business? How do you bring about that change in mindset within your own team?
Well, I think you have to retool, because you have people that you don't want to lose the domain knowledge. Right. You have people that understand your business, your vertical, how you make money, that sort of stuff. They need to retool. Like, one paradigm they need to understand is cloud. And you see, it doesn't matter if it's what Netscope does on that side or what Amazon is doing on the infrastructure side. We have a deficit of knowledge there, so we need to be retooling. It's actually probably a pretty good time for all the listeners out there to go learn up on Azure and AWS and SaaS services, because we're not traveling as much as we used to be. So I think there is a skills deficit, but I think we can overcome it by retooling our teams and thinking about training us out there. That's why I kind of mentioned, maybe I get rid of an old legacy piece of technology, and I leverage a platform that I already have, and then I have a little bit extra budget, and now I'm going to send them as training that's going to help them understand how we're going to use cloud, how we're going to look at stuff beyond our perimeter now, and level them up. So I don't want to give up on them. I think we can retool them, and I think people are hungry to learn more stuff.
So Lamont, again, just asking the same question with a different twist, which is, you mentioned this platform approach, and you guys, both of you, have talked about this piecemeal architecture, if you will, that has been put together over many, many years. So what, in your opinion, should vendors of those quote unquote legacy products, I mean, so the last thing you want to have as a vendor is, hey, come renewal time, it's like, hey, you guys are out because we don't need you anymore because you've made the change. So how does a vendor become more aware of where their product has or doesn't have value in a CISO's network?
So I think some of this is part building upon this retooling aspect, because as Rick mentioned, totally agree with the idea of retooling. Not only your personnel, but you have to retool your security stack too. Again, we move very, very quickly. Most of us did as security professionals to, if we didn't have a mechanism for them to go direct to cloud, we made it happen overnight for them to go. So there are some unseen consequences for doing so. So as you're retooling, and as we're retooling our people to get them ready, we also have to retool our infrastructure there. And once we retool, we'll get to categorize that and look at, so I need something from my legacy stack that does this in the cloud. I need something that will scale to the encryption, because as I see, everything's encrypted now, so the good and the bad. So I need something that's going to help me do that at scale. I need something that's going to, most importantly, protect my data. You know, what becomes important if we really believe that the baselines have changed, you know, and we got to throw all of this out, as Rick said, do many risk assessments. So what is that risk assessment going to tell us about the environment that we work in today? Is that third-party risk becomes very, very important. Understanding our supply chain is going to become very, very important. The way we do diligence is different than the operating models of the past. So now that's very important. So when you're looking at tools and looking at the value and the efficacy, how do they fit into that? How do they support the data protection and the new work from home environment that's here to stay?
Yeah, and a great insight. And I think for the listeners also, especially if you're on the vendor side, just understanding what a CISO's life and journey looks like going forward, and then seeing how you either fit or you need to make adaptation to what you already have so that you continue to stay relevant. Because as both Rick and Lamont said, there is going to be retooling and there is going to be jettisoning of things that are less relevant now, especially now during this crunch time. So again, thank you for your insights, Rick and Lamont, and looking forward to future conversations.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.